yoga practices?
Oh man, that's my first love. At the end of my career, I was left with 3 herniated discs in my back. I was developing a bad back over the years of just wearing all of that stuff, tucking that shirt in a seated position, doing a lot of, I used to get out of my car and walk as much as I could, but you spend so much time in a seated position driving, then you spend a lot of seated time just, in the police car to the side, typing awkward on their little laptop, and then you go inside the building and you got to type some more, and you still got all this stuff around your waist. And people with a small waist are more prone to the back injuries than they are of larger people. So at the end of it, I was left with herniated discs. I had gained a lot of weight. Even right now, as I stand before you, I'm 165 pounds. At the time when they put me off of work, I was like maybe 220. And I was fat, and I spent a lot of that time in the bed gaining weight, and my muscles had shrunk. So I wasn't even, by the time I ended up peeling all that fat off, I went down to 135 pounds because I had muscle atrophy. When your muscles just shrink like somebody sitting in a wheelchair, after a while, your leg's gonna shrink because you don't use it, you lose it. So and I was being prescribed by the hospital. I was being prescribed a lot of strong medication, a lot of painkillers. And then not to mention just dealing with all of the stuff, the trauma of growing up in West Oakland, South Richmond, East Oakland, and then becoming a cop and seeing all that black death. I had absorbed so much death and stuff. And then, drinking habits, because drinking is police culture, right? It's culture. And I had ended up in pretty bad shape, and then my job told me, they was like, you only got a year to try to, to recover, or you're gonna get forced into retirement. Nothing personal against me, that's just what it is. When you get deemed, because you a physical liability at some point, they're like, we're not finna, if you can't recover and do a fitness for duty test within a year, you totally disabled, and we gonna cut you. Because it's cheaper to get a new cop than it is to hold on to an older cop who's already making the highest pay and stuff like that. It's like, man, cut the old dude out, let him go, get a young, fresh officer, and keep going. So I went to a natural doctor outside of my coverage, and it was a brother, and I'm gonna name drop him because it's nothing but positive, man. Dr. Michael Hebar. Michael Hebar was, he's a brother. He got his own practice over on 300 Grand right across the street from the lake. He's a pain specialist. Because if I try to say physiatrist or something like that, I'm gonna probably confuse it. But he's a physiatrist, a pain specialist. So when I went to go see him, man, he just looked at me and he was straight. He's like, man, where are you from? I said, man, I'm from West Oakland. He said, oh man, me too. And, we started talking. And he said, man, I went to Merritt College when the Children's Hospital used to be Merritt College. He's like, man, I was in Merritt College with Bobby Seals and Huey P. Newton, and he was showing me these pictures and stuff, and he was just bonding with me, right? So then after that, he said, look, man, you a dope fiend. You know what I mean? He said, you fat and you a dope fiend. They didn't give you all these prescription pills. You didn't took all these prescription pills. Now you fat, out of shape, and we can fix you, but it's gonna take some time. We're gonna put you through rehab. And a pain restoration program, we introduce you to yoga, Tai Chi, acupuncture, massage, deep tissue massages, shock therapy, where they used to put these things on you to try to shock you, try to rewire your nerves. A bunch of different things. He said, but we're gonna get you off of dope. And he said, the first thing we're gonna do is clean your diet up. So for the, they would provide food for me, so I wasn't eating like fried food. I was eating real clean. You know what I mean? Like the only meat I was eating was either grilled or. Once he took me to yoga the first time, he had an in-house yoga instructor, was a female, and the minute I did yoga, and she got me able to release my muscles, and my muscles relaxed, and I stretched, and I was a lifelong athlete, but that was the first time I said, I knew that I could become flexible. I knew that yoga would fix me right there, but I knew I had a lot of work to go. So I did it with her as much as I could, but then I was also sneaking and going to yoga to the people because I felt like they babied me too much. And I'm like, no, I'm already injured. I know I got injured from wearing all of this stuff, and I'm not going to get more injured doing yoga. So I was going and doing. I just fell in love with yoga. And then, I stopped drinking. Like I got a new habit. I was off of the prescription pills. When I was in high school, I used to win the strongest man contest every year. You know, we used to average arm wrestle, and bench press. You know, I always knew I was a strong person, and I ran track and I was fast, and I thought that you had to be predisposed through your genetics to certain physical attributes. Flexibility being one of them. I'm like, I'm not a flexible person. That's not in me. That's not who I am. I'm a strong and fast person, and I accepted that and went on. So I never, in track and stuff like that, I never took the stretching serious. I'm like, it just hurts and is uncomfortable, right? But when I started doing it, I'm like, no, I can become flexible. All of the things that I wanted to do with my body can happen now. Even though I'm an older person, you know what I mean? I'm like, I know that I could accomplish things, so I started doing yoga, and I started finding peace. You know what I mean? Doing yoga and knowing that I could change my body, and I was so happy to be able to alleviate pain without using an outside substance. Like, I don't need to go get someone's pill or someone's anything. I can alleviate my pain to a degree, not completely, not yet, but I can alleviate my pain by getting up, stretching, having a healthy diet, you know, keeping movement. So then I just really fell in love with yoga, and then it influenced me to become a teacher. I went and put myself through yoga instructor school. I kind of did it for selfish reasons a little bit, because I was like, yo, this would take me deeper into my yoga practice. I'm like, because I used to, try to do skateboard, and I wanted to surf. There's a lot of things that I wanted to do that I felt like I didn't have the flexibility to do, because I was like a short, stocky dude. Like almost my whole career as a cop, even when I was in shape, I was 185 pounds to 190 pounds, from just the weightlifting. And so when I did that, I was just like, man, and I just fell in love with it. And I seen that our people needed it, just as a people, as a means to de-stress. Dr. Hebar taught me, he said, you think at the rate of your breathing. And when he said that, and I was just like, huh? He said, think about it right now, young blood. If I jump behind this door and scare the shit out of you, your heart rate is going to be rapid, but your thoughts are going to be rapid just like that. When your heart rate speed up, then your thoughts speed up. The same way right now, if me and you both go take off in a dead sprint, run around this block and come back, and then we pull open a book and try to read that book, it's going to be much harder to comprehend with our heart racing, because our thoughts is racing. But when you go sit yourself down in a coffee house, throw on some of that jazz music, and you relax, you're able to read, and you can read faster, and you can comprehend more. You can get through it more with being calm. So that's why I was like, a lot of us are walking around in these neighborhoods in flight or fight syndrome, worried, stressed, and it's making you think like an animal. It's keeping your thought levels low. And even just like when we think about hip hop, right? If I'm gonna put on some hip hop about killing somebody, man, bring on that 808, bring on that boom, 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 boom. But when somebody gonna make you think, the Nas's, the Rakim, they're gonna bring that jazz. They're gonna bring out them horns and stuff. It's different. Yeah, not saying one is wrong, because there's a time to go to war, but it ain't every day. Man, keep that energy in the gym. It's your ability to think, and that's what yoga was giving me more than anything, is a breathing exercise. And we all need those breathing exercises, and that's why I was able to help get a few people off of stop smoking cigarettes. Because what I was able to peep is, you're just looking for a moment to concentrate on your breathing, and that cigarette is a soundtrack to your breathing. But if you can also just breathe without that. You can also just sit there and be mindful and see what it means to slow your heart rate down and feel your muscles and joints stop contracting and stop lifting. Then you can get to the point to where you can relax and you can stretch your muscles, then stretch your joints and ligaments. Then flexibility happens. But all while I'm going on this journey, I'm being a more calm, stable person. The way I'm thinking is better. I'm thinking at a much higher level than I am if I'm just in flight or fight. You know what I mean? Like those 808 drums is for fighting and fucking. Nothing really else, right? Like that's what it comes down to. Even like the way that a person is going to dance to an 808, there's going to be some booty shake. Ain't nothing wrong with it. It's a time and place for everything, but it just shouldn't be the dominant. You know what I mean? Fight or flight shouldn't be the dominant. Because ultimately, when you talk about building a society in our community, it's your ability to think, your ability to create, your ability to build. It matters so much more than their fight or fight. Because if we was really flight or fight every day, nobody would be here on this motherfucker. We all be dead. You get what I'm saying? So that's what made me really fall in love with yoga. And then, like I said, the flexibility. When I went to that yoga studio for the first time, there was a black woman in there, 80 years old, and she was standing on her hands.
Wow.
And me and my homeboy, I've always been able to do flips and walk on my hands and stuff like that. But I was in there, and I knew at that point where I was at physically, I couldn't even attempt to try to stand on my hands. But I'm like, yo, me and my homie, we used to walk in basketball. Where he played basketball, I used to come out, we used to see who could walk from one end to the court and back on their hands.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? And we used to do that every day in PE in high school. And I'm like, man, I'm so far away from that at the time, 33 years old. And here this woman is 80 years old, and she's standing on her hands with her eyes closed, chilling,
Wow.
meditating. I still to this day, I've been in my yoga practice deep since 2015, and I still can't stand on my hands with my eyes closed. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I was just like, damn, I just thought that was so remarkable, you know? And then to know the history of yoga, when I started studying, like, man, this goes back to ancient Kemet. As long as we've been writing stuff down, we've had a physical practice of yoga. Before some of the, you know, and a lot of people get upset, before we wrote down Christianity, we documented the yoga. We documented yoga. It's on the walls. It's on the walls, brother, you know? It's on the walls, brother. And then people will say, oh, Egypt wasn't the greatest civilization. That's just the last one to not be destroyed in our lifetime. It was in Kush before that. I say, okay, yeah. And it probably was on their walls too. Right. But the oldest document we got is those walls. And you on that wall, brothers on there, darker pigment than me, doing yoga. It's yours. It's yours. And we taught it to the Indians. Africans taught it to the Indians. The Indians ended up teaching it to the Western world, trying to come over here, teaching it to white people, and it changed. It's the same way our parents grew up with Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry and Little Richard. So they know what real rock and roll is. But if you came up in the 80s like I did watching MTV, you like, man, that shit is lame.
Headbangers Ball.
Yeah, I don't want nothing, man, get that out of here. I don't want nothing to do with that. So it's the same thing, like yoga has been gone so long from our community, it don't look right. People say, oh man, that's for white folks. Come on, man. Come on, man. Anything that's worth doing, your people already did it, and they did it before, and they did it better, man. Stop playing. Let's stop talking each other down with that low level thought. The first surfing tournaments was held by us. Like, man, stop playing. You know what I mean? Like, stop playing. You know what I mean? So, absolutely, I was, you know, if any type of digital footprint I want to leave, I'm willing to leave, is that of yoga. Because so many of us ain't ready for no guns. We ain't ready for all, man. And then I'm going to tell you this, though. Even if you are, yoga made me a way better shooter. During my retirement process, I probably went 3 or 4 years without shooting a gun. So when I finally went back to the range, I was scared to shoot. I'm like, man, I know I'm not, because it's a perishable skill. The same way, like, if you stop riding your skateboard, you ain't gonna be able to ride your skateboard. You see what happened to these NBA dudes. If they miss a couple games, they come back, their shot is off. Just in a couple, they off. They not hot like they was. So I was like, man, I was scared to be able to shoot, but because of yoga, the practicing stillness, practicing smooth breathing, and it improved the stigmatism in my right eye from doing all the inversions. A lot of people, like, if you have astigmatism in your eyes, a lot of that people don't really know is it's a lack of blood flow to lack of circulation. So just by me doing an inversion is any yoga pose where your heart is above your head. Doing all of those inversions and standing on my hand increased the blood flow to my head. Well, when it increased the blood flow to my head, it improved my eyesight. You get what I'm saying? As a byproduct of that. So when I went back as a better shooter after taking 3 years off than I was when I left the shit. So that's when I really felt like, man, yoga is what I need to be doing. You know what I mean?
Powerful.
Man.
So, I mean, if somebody would like to contact you for a session or anything, how can they do that?
Man, I'm one of the hardest people to catch sometimes, because I took a lot of time away from my son, my daughter, and my wife, living inside my own head, having a fucked up career. And so now I prioritize my family and my kids, especially my kids, because my wife is strong, is solid. You know, my wife don't do what she's supposed to do. She's raised by some by some good women. She's ready, good mother and aunts and stuff. She gonna do what she's supposed to do, you know. But I really try to make sure I got that connection with my kids because, you know, my son had certain type of challenges as a man, and my daughter has different challenges as a black female growing up with this social media and stuff. But I am looking to get back into it. It was so much easier for me to just go teach at Yoga to the People and Yoga Tree and these other yoga studios because it was already there, and I wasn't looking to run my own business. I was just looking to teach. But now after the COVID-19, I don't know what yoga studio, I really have to put the effort and energy into developing my my own brand. So right now it's coming. I just reset up my yoga, and I have to get my yoga chops back together because I say this too, yogas are the first MCs, period. Because think about it, if you in a yoga session for an hour, even back in ancient Kemet, they used to do it for way longer than an hour. They would do a day. We had way more discipline than we got now. MCing, for that hour or that 90 minutes I'm teaching that class, my words, somebody is allowing me to use my words to control their movement, their breathing. And if you allow me to control your breathing, you allow me to control your thinking. That's one of the things I take very serious, and you have to talk for a whole hour straight. So I'm writing new material, different flows, because like I said, I started off teaching that Yoga to the People, a beginner class, but what I thought was beginner for them wasn't beginner for our people. So I was spanking people a lot, you know, keeping them in the poses and stuff too long and stuff like that, so I had to tweak it. So right now I'm writing an easier flow, call it a flow pattern, you know, and just on my Instagram. What's my Instagram?
Like
Ronald?
The real Rondo now?
The real Ronald, yeah, the real Ronald.
So that's where you can find them.
Yeah, that's where you can find. Long story short, everything is a long drawn out story with me. But what I'm saying is, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna fill that up. I'm gonna push a hard line teaching the yoga more than anything. That's what our people need.